Welcome to another episode of the Musar Torah podcast, where we explore the ethical and spiritual teachings from our weekly parsha. I'm your host, and today we're diving into Parshas Behar, which is the first half of the double parsha, and the profound mitzvah of shmittah. At the beginning of Parshas Behar, Hashem commands us about the mitzvah of shmittah, working the land for 6 years, and during the 7th year taking a complete break to allow the land to rejuvenate. It is often described as a Shabbos for the land itself. Let's pause and really consider what this mitzvah demands of us. For a farmer, for someone who depends on agriculture for their livelihood, observing shmittah is an extraordinarily challenging event. In fact, Chazal and Yalkut Tehillim make a remarkable statement. They tell us that people who observe shmittah demonstrate a strength of character that can only be attributed to angels. Think about that for a moment. Angel, Rav Chaim Shmuelevitz offers a powerful insight here. He explains that there is actually greater strength and willpower needed for a person burdened with the Yetzer Hara and natural tendencies toward greed to reach the heights attained by malachim than for the angels themselves. The Gemara in Shabbos on Peiches Amud Aleph teaches us the strength of malachim is their approach of na'aseh v'nishma, first doing and then listening, taking action before understanding. This, Rav Chaim tells us, is precisely the pillar of strength that those who observe shmittah possess. Let's be honest with ourselves here for a minute. If we approached shmittah purely through logic and reason, could we really let our fields lie fallow for an entire year? How would we make a living? How would we feed our families? The questions cascade one after another, and through purely rational thinking, observing shmittah seems impossible. It's only because these farmers act first and understand later, embodying that angelic approach of na'aseh v'nishma, that they reach this extraordinary level of strength and faith that equals or perhaps even surpasses that of angels. Rav Chaim goes deeper here. He explains that there is something profound about this seemingly irrational observance of shmittah. If a person were to commit to keeping shmittah based solely on logic and reason, they would likely be unable to maintain that commitment throughout the entire year. The simple faith, emunah pshuta, of first fulfilling and then understanding is what maintains bitachon, our trust in Hashem, consistently over time. Chazal stress this point when they highlight that shmittah must be kept for the entire year. That's the true challenge. Maintaining unswerving faith and constant trust in Hashem intact for such an extended period of time. This, Rav Chaim says, is the hallmark of the greatness of the Jewish people. We are expected to live with a level of trust in Hashem comparable to that of angels. If we fail in this trust, the consequences are severe: exile from the land. This approach of doing and then listening isn't just a method for acquiring bitachon. It actually reflects the nature of true bitachon itself, the ability to relate to Hashem's omnipotence as a vivid, living reality in our own lives. There's a beautiful story in the Gemara in Tainus Daf Chaf Daled Amid Beis about the wife of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, and this illustrates the point very well, I think. She would kindle her oven even though it was empty because she didn't want people to know she was too poor to be able to bake bread. One day, a curious neighbor decided to take a look in the oven to see if there was actually any bread baking. When she opened the door to the oven, to her astonishment, she saw the oven was full of bread. The neighbor called out asking for a stick to remove the bread that was now at risk of burning. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa's wife calmly replied that she was just bringing one. The Gemara concludes the story by telling us she was bringing a stick because she was accustomed to miracles and confident that one would happen so she wouldn't be embarrassed. The profound lesson here is that our bitachon should produce a certainty identical to our lived reality. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa's wife was bringing a stick to remove bread that by all logical measures shouldn't have have even been there. This kind of bitachon isn't based on intellectual reasoning. It's rooted in simple, pure faith, what we call emunah pshuta. Now, you might be wondering, is this kind of bitachon only for spiritual giants? Is it reserved only for those on a higher spiritual plane than most of us? The answer is a resounding no. According to the Gemara in Bava Metzia, Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph, when people enter their granary to measure their harvest, they say a prayer asking Hashem to increase what they have. While they are counting, they recite another prayer thanking Hashem for having already sent a blessing. We see from here that every one of us is expected to both pray for and thank Hashem for His providence, even before we see the results. Let me share one final insight from the Gemara in Brachos Daf Ches Amud Aleph. It tells us, and I'll be paraphrasing here, that someone who works for their livelihood is greater than someone who merely fears Hashem. Why would this be the case? The answer is profound. Someone who works for their living comes to know that it isn't their work alone, but rather Hashem's providence that sustains them. Meanwhile, someone who doesn't work, even though they fear Hashem, might fall under the misconception that sustenance comes through human efforts alone. In our modern context, this teaches us something vital about the balance between effort and faith. We are called to put in genuine effort in our endeavors while simultaneously recognizing that our success ultimately comes from Hashem. As we prepare for Shabbos and read Parshas Behar-Bechoksai, let's reflect on the mitzvah of shmittah and the extraordinary level of bitachon it demands. Let's ask ourselves, in what areas of our lives might we need to embrace the approach of na'aseh v'nishma, doing first and understanding later? Where might we need to trust Hashem more fully, even when logic and reason suggests otherwise? This has been the Masorah Torah podcast. Until next time, may we all merit to strengthen our bitachon in Hashem and experience His blessings in abundance. Have a good Shabbos.